The massive viewport on the bridge of the UES Defiance showed nothing but enemy ships, thousands of them. Admiral Marcus Rivera stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his face betraying no emotion as he stared at the alien armada surrounding Earth. The hegemony vessels, sleek, angular craft with hulls that shimmered with an iridescent blue-green glow, had appeared without warning 3 days ago. They're moving into attack formation. Admiral, Lieutenant Alara Frost reported, her voice steady despite the fear Rivera knew she must feel. All 7,000 vessels. 7,000 against Earth's combined defense fleet of barely 300 ships. The math was simple and brutal. Status of the civilian evacuation? Rivera asked. 23% complete, Commander Reyes answered from his station. We need at least 12 more hours to get the priority populations to the deep shelters. Rivera nodded. 12 hours they didn't have. The hegemony had made their intentions clear in their first and only communication. Humanity was deemed dangerously unpredictable and would be contained. No negotiation. No terms. Signal from Dr. Mehta, Lieutenant Frost announced. He requests immediate communication. Put him through, Rivera ordered. The main screen shifted to show a disheveled man with dark circles under his eyes. Behind him, a massive machine pulsed with blue-white energy. Admiral, we're ready, Dr. Arjun Mehta said without preamble. The displacement device is operational, but I must warn you, this is untested technology. The theoretical models suggest it will create a defensive shield around Earth, but the energy requirements are— Doctor, Rivera interrupted, we're out of options. The hegemony fleet is moving into final attack position. Whatever your device does, it cannot be worse than what happens if we do nothing. Mehta nodded grimly. I understand. I'll need 10 minutes to bring the system to full power. You have 5, Rivera said. As Mehta's image disappeared, Rivera turned to his tactical officer. Lieutenant Frost, order all our ships to form a blocking screen. Buy the doctor his 5 minutes. Sir, against that many ships. I know, Lieutenant. Rivera's eyes were hard. But every second we gain might save millions. On the screen, Earth's defense fleet moved into position. 300 ships against 7,000. A suicide mission by any calculation. Incoming transmission from the hegemony flagship, Reyes announced. Ignore it, Rivera ordered. They've said all they need to say. The enemy fleet began to advance, their formation perfect and precise. The first energy weapons flashed across space, brilliant beams of concentrated plasma that tore through the outer layer of Earth's defensive screen. Return fire, Rivera commanded. All ships engage at will. Focus on their lead vessels. Earth's ships responded, unleashing everything they had. For a brief, glorious moment, it seemed like humanity might have a chance. Several hegemony vessels exploded in brilliant flares of light. Then the alien's second wave opened fire. Shields failing on the outer defensive line, Frost reported as the first human ships began to disappear from the tactical display. 37 ships lost, 42. Rivera watched as Earth's defenses crumbled. Time? 3 minutes until Dr. Mehta's device is ready, Reyes answered. We won't last 3 minutes, Frost said quietly. Redirect all power from non-essential systems, Rivera ordered. Even life support if necessary. Our ships don't need to survive, they just need to last long enough. Across the fleet, lights dimmed and environmental systems shut down as every scrap of power was diverted to shields and weapons. Ship captains and their crews made the ultimate sacrifice, choosing certain death to buy precious seconds. 1 minute remaining, Reyes announced as another wave of human ships vanished from the display. The hegemony fleet pushed forward relentlessly, their formation never breaking, their advance unstoppable. The remaining human vessels fought with desperate courage, but they were being swatted aside like insects. 30 seconds. The enemy fleet split into precise attack groups, some continuing toward the defensive line while others moved to encircle the planet. They're targeting population centers, Frost reported, horror in her voice. Orbital bombardment beginning in 10 seconds to device activation, Reyes interrupted. Rivera watched as the first hegemony weapons targeted Earth directly, brilliant beams of energy lancing toward the blue planet. 5, 4, 3, all ships interpose on bombardment targets, Rivera commanded. 2, 1. On Earth, in a heavily shielded laboratory beneath the Himalayan mountains, Dr. Mehta pressed his hand against the activation panel of his displacement device. The machine's pulsing grew to a blinding intensity. Forgive me if I'm wrong, he whispered. A wave of energy unlike anything ever recorded surged outward from the planet. It passed through the battling fleets, washing over both human and hegemony vessels. For a moment, everything seemed suspended in perfect stillness. Then impossibly, Earth began to fade from view. The blue planet, its atmosphere, the moon, all of it becoming transparent like a photograph slowly being erased. On the Defiance, alarms screamed as sensors failed. "What's happening?" Rivera demanded, gripping the edge of the command console. "Unknown energy signature enveloping the planet," Frost reported, fingers flying across her controls. "It's not a weapon, at least nothing in our database. The planet is... Admiral, I don't know how to explain this. Earth is disappearing." Before their eyes, Earth vanished completely. Not destroyed, but simply gone, as if it had never existed. The space where it had been now showed only stars. The moon flickered and followed a heartbeat later. "All ships in Earth orbit are experiencing the same effect," Reyes said, voice shaking. "The displacement is spreading outward from the planet." Rivera felt a strange tingling sensation spreading through his body. Looking down, he saw his hands becoming translucent. "Send a message to the fleet," he ordered, his voice calm despite everything. "Tell them..." He paused, considering his final words carefully. "Tell them we'll be back." The Defiance and the remaining human vessels faded from normal space, following Earth into nothingness. On the Hegemony flagship, Supreme Commander Valk watched in disbelief as the human planet and its defenders vanished from existence. Their most advanced sensors detected no debris, no radiation signature, nothing to indicate destruction, just absence. What did they do? His second-in-command whispered. "They escaped," Valk replied, fury and fear mingling in his voice. "Somehow they escaped." He turned to his communications officer. "Send word to all Hegemony worlds. The humans are gone, but they may return. We must prepare." Then to the galaxy at large, the Hegemony broadcast a very different message. "Let this be a lesson. Humanity has been erased. But in a pocket dimension separate from normal space-time, Earth continued to exist. The displacement had worked, just not in the way Dr. Maida had intended. Rather than creating a shield, it had phased the entire planet and everything in near orbit into another realm where time flowed differently. As the survivors on Earth realized what had happened, they also understood a terrible truth. They had no way to reverse the process. "Not yet. What now?" Lieutenant Frost asked as the command crew of the Defiance gathered in the suddenly quiet bridge. The enemy fleet no longer visible through the viewport. Admiral Rivera looked at the stars. Unfamiliar constellations seen through the lens of another dimension. "Now," he said firmly, "we prepare. We learn, we grow stronger, and someday we return." None of them could know that what would feel like a century to them would be 5 centuries for the galaxy they left behind, or that when humanity finally found their way back to normal space, they would return not as refugees, but as an armada. Ambassador Toran of the Vexari species adjusted his ceremonial collar as he approached the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. 500 years had passed since the legendary disappearance of the human homeworld. 5 centuries during which the Hegemony had consolidated their power, establishing the Council as the supreme authority over 200 species across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. "Ambassador Toran," a voice called from behind him. "A moment, please." Toran turned to see High Counselor Draz approaching, the Hegemony leader's tall, slender frame towering over most other delegates. The ancestral plates on Draz's forehead, markers of his ancient lineage, gleamed under the station's lights. "High Counselor," Toran acknowledged with a respectful bow. "How may I assist you? I understand you plan to address the Council regarding the anomaly in Sector 7, Draz said, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of displeasure among his kind. "I would advise caution." "Caution, High Counselor. The readings are likely nothing more than a natural phenomenon. Raising unnecessary concerns wastes the Council's valuable time." Toran felt his neck frills stiffen. "With respect, the energy signatures are unlike anything in our records. My government believes—" "Your government," Draz interrupted, "is young in galactic affairs. The Hegemony has monitored space for millennia. Trust our experience in these matters." Before Toran could respond, the chamber doors opened, and delegates from across the galaxy began filing in. Draz gave a final warning look before gliding away to his elevated position at the head of the Council. Inside the massive chamber, representatives from 200 worlds took their places. The station, a marvel of engineering that served as the permanent headquarters of the Galactic Council, hung in space at the precise gravitational balance point between three star systems, symbolizing the stability and order the Council claimed to maintain. Delegates, Draz began once all were seated. We convene today to discuss matters of trade, security, and governance. First, the reports from the border regions. Point of order, Toran interrupted, rising from his seat. I request the Council address the anomaly in Sector 7 as a priority matter. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Interrupting the High Counselor was considered extremely poor form. Draz's upper eyes narrowed. Ambassador Toran wishes to discuss sensor readings that our experts have already classified as a natural stellar phenomenon. Nevertheless, let us hear his concerns so we may put them to rest. Toran moved to the central platform, activating the holographic display. The three-dimensional image of a distant sector appeared, with a strange distortion visible at its edge. For the past 27 days, our long-range observers have detected massive energy signatures in this uninhabited region. The patterns are regular, structured, clearly artificial in nature. Remnants of an ancient civilization, perhaps, suggested the Nuvian representative. Many have risen and fallen over the eons. No, Toran replied. These readings began suddenly, precisely 27 days ago. Something or someone has arrived. And you believe this presents a threat? Draz asked, voice dripping with condescension. I believe it warrants investigation. The energy output exceeds that of an entire hegemony battle group. If it is a new species making first contact, we should extend the hand of diplomacy. If it is something else. Toran left the implication hanging. Draz rose from his seat. The Council appreciates your vigilance, Ambassador. However, the hegemony has already dispatched observers to this region. Until they report, there is nothing more to discuss. Suddenly, the chamber's lights flickered. The holographic display wavered and then shut down completely. Station control, Draz called out. Report. The chief of station operations responded over the comm system, his voice tense. All sensors have gone dark, Counselor. We're experiencing a system-wide failure. Impossible, Draz snapped. This station has triple redundancies. For 10 seconds, the chamber remained in dim emergency lighting. Then, as suddenly as they had failed, the systems returned to normal. Sensors back online, the station chief reported, then paused. Counselor, there's a vessel. It wasn't there before. The main view screen activated, showing what lay outside the station. A ship of unfamiliar design hovered less than a kilometer away. Massive, gleaming, with lines that spoke of both elegance and power. It was easily 3 times the size of the largest hegemony cruiser. Scan it, Draz ordered, his composure cracking slightly. We're trying, sir. Our scans can't penetrate its hull. Hail them. No need, the station chief replied. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. A message appeared on screens throughout the chamber, translated automatically into each delegate's native language. We have returned. Toran felt his heart's pounding. Could it be? He whispered. Impossible, Draz said, but the tremor in his voice betrayed his uncertainty. The station chief's voice came through again, now barely controlled panic. Counselor, our long-range sensors are back online. The vessel isn't alone. We're detecting hundreds, no, thousands of ships surrounding the station in stealth formation. They only became visible when they chose to be seen. On the bridge of the lead vessel, the UES Reckoning, Commander Diana Wells observed the Council station through the main viewport. The massive structure, with its distinctive spiral arms extending from a central hub, housed the government that had ruled the galaxy unchallenged for 5 centuries, until today. Commander, her communications officer reported, we're receiving thousands of transmissions from the station. Everyone's trying to contact us at once. Wells nodded. Let them wait. Status of the fleet? All ships maintaining stealth positions as ordered. The only vessel visible to their sensors is ours. And their defensive capabilities? Minimal, her tactical officer replied. Their weapon systems are primarily ceremonial. This is a political center, not a military one. Wells tapped her comm badge. Wells to Admiral Wolf. Go ahead, Commander, came the deep, steady voice of Fleet Admiral Jackson Wolf from the flagship Prometheus. Hidden 50,000 kilometers away. We're in position, Admiral. The Council has received our message. They've detected the Reckoning, but not the rest of the fleet. Excellent. Their reaction? Confusion, primarily. Some fear. Wells paused. Sir, I've studied the historical records. The High Counselor, Draz. His ancestral plates match those of Supreme Commander Valk. The hegemony commander who led the attack on Earth, Wolf noted. His descendant, fitting. Your orders, sir? Proceed with first contact protocols. Let's see if they remember us. There was a pause. And, Commander? Make an impression. Wells smiled. Understood, Admiral. She turned to her crew. Prepare my shuttle. I'll lead the delegation personally. As her officers moved to comply, Wells studied the station once more. Humanity had spent a century in the pocket dimension, subjectively speaking, 500 years for the rest of the galaxy. They had used that time well, advancing their technology, unifying their people, building a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. When Dr. Meta's great-granddaughter had finally reversed the displacement effect 3 months ago, they had emerged to find a very different galaxy, one dominated by the very species that had tried to destroy them. The humans had kept their return quiet, gathering intelligence, observing from the shadows. What they discovered disturbed them deeply. The hegemony's tale of humanity's erasure had become legend, a cautionary story used to keep other species in line. Any civilization that showed too much independence was threatened with the human fate. Wells checked her uniform one last time before heading to the shuttle bay. Her diplomatic credentials were in order, though she suspected diplomacy might ultimately fail. The hegemony had built an empire on the lie of humanity's destruction. They wouldn't surrender that power willingly. Behind her, hidden in perfect formation, waited 9,000 warships, the combined might of a humanity that had evolved in isolation, free from outside influence or constraint. Shuttle ready. Commander, her pilot reported. Very good, Wells replied. Let's introduce ourselves to the galaxy. As she walked to the shuttle bay, Wells thought about how the Council would react when they realized the truth. That humanity hadn't been destroyed, merely displaced. That they had grown stronger in exile. That they had returned not seeking revenge, but justice, and if justice could not be achieved peacefully, the war fleet shadowing the Galactic Council stood ready to deliver it by force. The Council chamber fell into absolute silence as the doors parted. Commander Diana Wells stepped through, flanked by 4 human security officers in sleek graphene armor. The representatives of 200 species stared in undisguised shock at beings they had believed extinct for 5 centuries. High Counselor Draz stood frozen, all 4 of his eyes wide with disbelief. Impossible, he whispered, the word carrying in the perfect acoustics of the chamber. Wells walked with measured steps to the center of the room, her boots echoing on the polished floor. She wore a formal diplomatic uniform of deep blue with silver trim, the emblem of Earth emblazoned on her right shoulder. Behind her, the security team took positions at the corners of the platform, their posture relaxed but vigilant. Distinguished representatives of the Galactic Council, Wells began, her voice clear and confident. I am Commander Diana Wells of the United Earth Confederation. I bring greetings from a world you thought destroyed and a people you believed extinct. Murmurs erupted throughout the chamber. Ambassador Taran of the Vexari leaned forward in his seat, neck frills extended in excitement. This is a deception, Draz declared, regaining his composure. The humans were eliminated 5 centuries ago. This is clearly an impersonation by some unknown species. Wells smiled. Your ancestor, Supreme Commander Valk, certainly believed he had eliminated us. The historical records of that day show the hegemony broadcast a very specific message across all frequencies. Let this be a lesson. Humanity has been erased. She tilted her head. I'm curious, a lesson for whom, High Counselor? Draz's facial plates shifted in what Wells recognized as agitation. I will not stand here and be questioned by imposters. Guards! Station security forces moved toward the entrance, but Wells seemed unconcerned. Before your guards attempt anything unfortunate, she said calmly, you should be aware that my vessel is not alone. She raised a small device and activated it. The main view screen changed to show the space surrounding the station. Where before only a single massive ship had been visible, now hundreds appeared, then thousands, warships of varying sizes and designs, all bearing the same Earth emblem. They had been there all along, hidden by stealth technology far beyond anything the Council possessed. 9,000 ships, Wells explained, representing the combined strength of humanity's defensive fleet. We've been observing your civilization for some time now, learning, evaluating. The security forces halted, looking to their superiors for guidance. What do you want? Asked a Nuvian representative, her translucent skin paling even further. The truth, Wells replied, and our rightful place among the stars. She walked to the high table where the senior council members sat. Earth wasn't destroyed. It was displaced, shifted into a pocket dimension by experimental technology meant to shield us from the hegemony's attack. What felt like 100 years to us was 500 for the rest of the galaxy. Wells activated another holographic display showing Earth, beautiful, blue and very much intact, orbiting its sun. We have returned to our original location in space. Our world is hidden behind cloaking technology similar to what concealed our fleet, but it is there. Draz slammed his hand on the table. This proves nothing. These could be fabricated images. High Counselor, Toran interjected. Perhaps we should listen. No, Draz snapped. The hegemony will not be deceived by this charade. Whatever you are, you will submit to the authority of the Galactic Council or face the consequences. Wells raised an eyebrow. Consequences? Like the ones Earth faced 5 centuries ago? Allow me to be clear. We are not here to ask permission to exist. We are informing you of our return. On the Prometheus, hidden at the edge of the system, Admiral Jackson Wolf monitored the encounter through a secure channel. Beside him stood Kai Nakamura, Director of Human Intelligence Operations and the architect of their shadowed observation of the Council over the past 3 months. She's handling them well, Nakamura noted. Watching the confrontation unfold, Wolf nodded. Wells has always had a talent for diplomacy, though I suspect diplomacy may not be enough in this case. Sir, called the sensor officer, we're detecting power spikes from multiple locations throughout hegemony space. Their defense grid is activating. As expected, Nakamura said. The question is whether they're preparing for defense or offense. Wolf studied the tactical display where red indicators were appearing throughout nearby systems. Both, I imagine. Status of our stealth observers? All stations reporting in. We have eyes on every major hegemony installation within 50 light years. A communications officer approached. Admiral, priority message from Earth. President Okafor requests an update. Wolf nodded. Put her through to my ready room. In the private chamber adjacent to the bridge, a holographic image of President Layla Okafor appeared. Her dark eyes were sharp with concern. Admiral, she greeted him. How goes our first contact? About as expected, Madam President. The Council is in shock, the hegemony is in denial, and their military is mobilizing. And Commander Wells, handling the diplomatic front admirably. She's just revealed our fleet's presence, Okafor nodded. The Parliament is divided. Some representatives are calling for immediate military action against the hegemony, retribution for what they attempted 5 centuries ago. Others urge restraint. They suggest we should focus on building alliances with the other species who've lived under hegemony dominance. And your position, Madam President? I believe in justice, Admiral, not revenge. But I'm also not naive. She leaned forward. The hegemony built their power on the myth of our destruction. They won't simply step aside and welcome us back. Director Nakamura's intelligence suggests they've been preparing for conflict since the moment we emerged from displacement. His reports align with our observations, Wolf confirmed. They've been quietly activating weapons platforms throughout their territory. If they follow historical patterns, they'll present a diplomatic face while positioning for a preemptive strike. Okafor was silent for a moment, weighing options with the careful consideration that had made her a respected leader. We'll give them one chance, she finally decided. One opportunity to acknowledge their crimes and establish a new order. One where humanity has equal standing. But we will not allow ourselves to be vulnerable again. Her expression hardened. The hegemony taught the galaxy a lesson with our supposed destruction. Perhaps it's time we taught one of our own. Understood, Madam President. As the hologram faded, Wolf returned to the bridge. On the main screen, the council chamber was in chaos. Representatives arguing among themselves while Draz attempted to regain control. They're scared, Nakamura observed. They should be, Wolf replied. For 500 years, they've told stories about the dangerous, unpredictable humans who needed to be eliminated. Now they're facing 9,000 ships that could have attacked at any time, but chose to talk instead. Some of them might see that as strength, Nakamura suggested. Some might, Wolf agreed. Those are the ones we can work with. Back in the council chamber, Wells stood calmly at the center of the storm. Several representatives had approached her, speaking quietly, while others remained clustered around Draz. You must understand our position, a Talarian diplomat was saying. The hegemony has controlled interstellar politics for centuries. Many of us have never known any other system. And how has that system served you? Wells asked. The Talarians were once renowned for their scientific achievements. Yet in the past 300 years, your publications have declined by 70%. Your colony applications have been denied repeatedly. Your people are confined to 3 worlds when your population could easily sustain 12. The Talarians' compound eyes blinked rapidly. How do you know these things? We've been watching and learning, Wells replied. We know which species have thrived under hegemony rule, and which have been deliberately constrained. We know about the resource quotas, the technology restrictions, the carefully maintained balance of power that keeps the hegemony at the top. What alternative do you offer? Asked Ambassador Toran, who had joined the conversation. Wells turned to face him. Partnership. Equal standing based on mutual respect. Protection from those who would exploit or dominate. You speak of protection, Draz called out, having overheard. Yet you threaten us with your war fleet. Wells looked directly at the High Counselor. Our ships are defensive, positioned to protect our delegation. Had we wanted conflict, we could have struck without warning. Instead, we came to talk. She addressed the entire chamber. Humanity is back. Earth has returned to its rightful place. We seek neither domination nor revenge, but we will not be erased again, figuratively or literally. As diplomats whispered among themselves, Wells knew the real battle was just beginning. The hegemony would never willingly surrender its power, and many council races would follow their lead out of fear or habit. But others, those who had suffered under the current regime, might see humanity's return as an opportunity. 500 years ago, humanity had disappeared in a desperate act of survival. Now they had returned, stronger and united. The coming days would determine whether that return brought a new era of cooperation or a conflict that would reshape the galaxy. Wells caught the eye of Ambassador Toran, who gave her a slight nod. One ally, at least. It was a start. Commander Alexei Volkov pressed his back against the wall, pulse rifle ready as 3 shadowy figures moved past his position. The underbelly of Nova Gibraltar, humanity's largest space station, was a labyrinth of maintenance tunnels and forgotten corridors. Perfect for hiding. Perfect for hunting. Target moving to Section 47B, whispered the voice of Lieutenant Diaz in his earpiece. 3 hegemony operatives all armed. Confirmed, Volkov replied softly. Team 2 cut them off at Junction 9. Team 3 maintain perimeter. No one gets off this station. 2 months had passed since humanity's dramatic return. In that time, 7 council species had broken from hegemony influence to establish formal relations with the Human Confederation. The balance of power was shifting rapidly. The hegemony's response had been predictable, public diplomacy masking covert aggression. Their sleeper agents, dormant in human territory since their arrival, had suddenly activated. 3 assassination attempts on government officials, 5 sabotage operations targeting critical infrastructure, and now this. An infiltration team on Nova Gibraltar, carrying what sensors indicated was a biological package. Volkov checked his tactical display. The infiltrators were approaching the junction where Team 2 waited in ambush. He moved silently through the corridor, positioning himself to cut off their retreat. Ready, Team 2's leader reported. On your mark. Volkov took a deep breath. Execute. Brilliant light flooded the corridor ahead as Team 2 deployed flash suppressors designed to temporarily blind hegemony operatives without affecting human vision. Shouts of confusion echoed through the tunnels. Volkov rounded the corner, rifle raised. 2 of the infiltrators were down, stunned by Team 2. The third, clearly the leader, had reacted faster, diving into a side passage. Primary target escaping through maintenance shaft 12, Volkov called. Moving to intercept. He sprinted through the corridors, following the tactical display's guidance. The infiltrator was heading for the station's central hub, the most populated area. If they released a biological agent there, all teams, Volkov ordered, converge on central hub. Evacuate civilians. Priority 1 containment protocols. The chase led through increasingly crowded areas. Station residents pressed themselves against walls as Volkov raced past, alerted by security announcements to clear the way. Finally, he spotted his target, a tall, slender figure in nondescript clothing. The hegemony operative was moving with purpose toward the main plaza, one hand clutching a metallic cylinder. "Halt!" Volkov commanded, raising his weapon. "Security forces! Drop the container!" The operative turned, revealing features that mimicked human appearance but weren't quite right, the product of extensive biomodification to pass as human. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of Volkov. Then he smiled and pressed a button on the cylinder. Volkov fired, the pulse blast striking the operative in the chest. He went down, but the cylinder was already opening, a thin mist beginning to escape. "Containment breach," Volkov shouted into his comm. "Biological agent released in Section 8. Emergency systems engaged instantly." Transparent barriers slammed down, sealing the section. Air scrubbers activated at maximum power, drawing the mist away from populated areas. Volkov approached the fallen operative, rifle trained on him. "What did you release?" he demanded. The operative's smile remained, despite the burning wound in his chest. "A message," he wheezed. "From the hegemony. You should have stayed. In your pocket dimension. The agent, what is it? Something preserved. From your past. Specifically designed for human biology. We kept samples, just in case." The operative's eyes glazed over as his biomodified system shut down. Volkov tapped his comm. "Medical and containment teams to my location. Priority 1. We need analysis of this biological agent immediately." 12 hours later, aboard the flagship Prometheus, Admiral Jackson Wolfe studied the preliminary report with growing concern. Across from him sat Captain Maya Ortiz, his most skilled tactical officer, and Kai Nakamura, intelligence director. The agent was designed to target human DNA specifically, Nakamura explained, based on samples preserved from before Earth's displacement. Fortunately, Commander Volkov's quick action contained the threat. Our immune systems have evolved enough over the century in the pocket dimension that the weapon's effectiveness was limited. This time, Wolfe noted grimly. "What about next time? Or the time after that?" "There's more," Nakamura continued. "We interrogated another captured operative. The hegemony has been preserving weapons specifically designed to target humans for 5 centuries. Biological, chemical, targeted radiation sequences. They've maintained an entire research division dedicated to our destruction, even when they believed us gone." Captain Ortiz leaned forward. "Why maintain weapons against an enemy you believe eliminated?" "Insurance," Wolfe answered. "Or perhaps they never truly believed we were gone." "Either way," Nakamura said, "they're mobilizing these weapons now. Our intelligence suggests deployment to key hegemony strongholds throughout the sector." Wolfe stood, moving to the viewport where stars streaked by as the Prometheus traveled at FTL speeds. "We can't allow those weapons to remain in play. Too many innocent lives at risk." He turned back to his officers. "Options?" Ortiz activated a holographic display showing a sector map. "A direct assault on hegemony space would be costly. They've been fortifying their core worlds for centuries. And would likely trigger full-scale war," Nakamura added. "What if we don't attack their worlds?" Ortiz suggested. "What if we target only the weapons facilities? Surgical strikes." Wolfe considered this. "We'd need precise intelligence on each location. Extraction of the weapons or confirmed destruction. A small elite team could penetrate their defenses," Ortiz continued, excitement building in her voice. "We have stealth technology they can't detect. My tactical squad could infiltrate the facilities, neutralize the threats, and extract before they know what happened." Nakamura nodded slowly. "It could work. My division has identified 3 primary research facilities where these weapons are stored. With the right team and approach, develop the operation," Wolfe decided. "I want a comprehensive plan within 24 hours." As Ortiz and Nakamura departed to begin preparations, Wolfe received a priority communication from Earth. Ambassador Wells appeared on screen, her expression serious. "Admiral, I've just finished another round of negotiations with the Council. 7 more species have indicated interest in allying with us, but they're hesitant, fearing hegemony reprisals. We may be able to address some of those fears soon," Wolfe replied, explaining the intelligence about the targeted weapons and the planned operation. Wells nodded. That would strengthen our diplomatic position considerably. Meanwhile, I've made an interesting discovery through my conversations with Ambassador Toran. Several council species believe they were subjugated by the hegemony, using fear of human aggression as justification. They used us as a bogeyman, even after they thought us destroyed? More than that. Toran showed me historical records, doctored, of course, depicting humans as violent conquerors who needed to be stopped before we enslaved the galaxy. The hegemony positioned themselves as saviors who protected everyone from us. Wolf's expression darkened. And then used that narrative to dominate those same species. Precisely. I'm working to build a coalition of former victims, offering human protection in exchange for support against the hegemony. A diplomatic counteroffensive while we neutralize their weapons, Wolf mused. Hit them from all sides without firing a shot at their worlds. That's the idea. Though I suspect shots will eventually be fired. Let's hope they're limited and precisely targeted. After the communication ended, Wolf returned to the bridge where Captain Ortiz was already assembling her team. I've selected our best tactical operators, she reported. People who can move invisibly and strike with surgical precision. This mission requires more than just combat skills, Wolf cautioned. These facilities will have the highest security measures the hegemony possesses. Ortiz smiled. Which is why I've included the best slicers, tech specialists, and demolitions experts in the Confederation. We'll get in, Admiral. We'll find those weapons, and we'll make sure they're never used against our people. Wolf studied the determined faces of the assembled team. Humanity had survived extinction once already. They would not face that threat again. On Earth, now returned to normal space but hidden behind advanced cloaking technology, President Layla Okafor addressed the Confederation Parliament. The massive chamber, built within the restored halls of the old United Nations building, was packed with representatives from every human colony and settlement. 500 years ago, we disappeared to survive, Okafor told them, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. We will not disappear again. The hegemony seeks to finish what they started centuries ago. They believe us vulnerable, isolated, easy prey. Her expression hardened. They are mistaken. The Parliament erupted in applause. Humanity had returned to a hostile galaxy, but they were no longer the same species that had fled in desperation. They had evolved, advanced, united, and they were ready to fight for their place among the stars, through diplomacy if possible, through force if necessary. The Shadow War had begun. Captain Maya Ortiz watched through the viewport as the hegemony battlecruisers emerged from hyperspace. 12 massive vessels, their weapons already charging, surrounded her seemingly outmatched fleet of 5 human ships. All vessels reporting ready, Captain, her first officer announced. Shields at maximum, Ortiz nodded calmly. Open a channel to the hegemony flagship. The main screen flickered to life, showing a hegemony commander whose ancestral plates identified him as a member of the ruling elite. His 4 eyes narrowed at the sight of Ortiz. Human vessels, he said, not bothering to introduce himself. You have violated hegemony space and approached a restricted installation. You will power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your immediate destruction. Ortiz smiled slightly. I'm afraid we can't do that, Commander. We know what you're hiding in that installation, and we're here to make sure it never leaves. You are outnumbered and outgunned, the hegemony officer replied. You're 5 ships against my 12. The outcome is inevitable, is it? Ortiz asked. She tapped a command into her console. Suddenly, alarms blared on the hegemony bridge. Their sensor officers shouted reports as the commander's eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible, he whispered. Oh, it's quite possible, Ortiz said. You see these 5 ships you can see? They're just the distraction. Around the hegemony fleet, space itself seemed to ripple as 20 more human vessels deactivated their stealth systems, appearing out of nowhere in perfect attack position. The hegemony ships were now the ones surrounded. You were saying something about being outgunned? Ortiz asked pleasantly. Before the commander could respond, she closed the channel. All ships execute Operation Lazarus. Primary targets only. Minimal collateral damage. Her fleet moved with precision, targeting the hegemony vessel's weapons and propulsion systems, while a specialized strike team deployed toward the installation, hidden on a small moon below. The battle was swift and decisive. The hegemony ships, caught completely by surprise, couldn't coordinate an effective defense. Within minutes, all 12 enemy vessels were disabled, floating powerless in space. Strike team has breached the facility, her tactical officer reported. They've located the bioweapon storage. Beginning containment and extraction, Ortiz nodded. This was the third and largest of the hegemony's bioweapon facilities, where they had stored their most dangerous creations designed specifically to target human DNA. The previous two raids had been equally successful. The hegemony never saw them coming, never had a chance to deploy. They're weapons of mass destruction. Captain, her communications officer called out. Priority message from Admiral Wolf. The hegemony has launched a surprise attack on 3 allied worlds. Ortiz's expression hardened. So they're done with the Shadow War. They've decided to make this open conflict. Orders, Captain? Complete the extraction. Then set course for the Vexari homeworld, maximum speed. Across the galaxy, Admiral Jackson Wolfe stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, directing humanity's response to the hegemony's sudden offensive. Tactical displays showed battles raging across multiple systems as hegemony forces struck at planets that had allied themselves with humanity. Status of the Vexari defense fleet? Wolfe asked. Holding for now, his tactical officer responded, but they're outnumbered. The Talarians are in worse shape. Their orbital defenses are failing. The Nuvians have already lost their outer colonies. Wolfe studied the displays, his mind calculating options. Deploy the 3rd and 5th fleets to the Talarian and Nuvian systems. I'll take the 1st fleet to support the Vexari personally. As orders went out across human space, Wolfe received a secure communication from Earth. President Okafor appeared on his private screen. Admiral, the Parliament has formally declared a state of war against the hegemony. You are authorized to use all necessary force to protect our allies and defeat hegemony aggression. Understood, Madam President. There's more, Okafor continued. Ambassador Wells has uncovered something critical. She needs to address the Council immediately. Whatever she's found, she believes it could end this conflict before it escalates further. The hegemony won't attend any council session now, Wolfe pointed out. Not with open warfare declared. That's exactly what she's counting on, Okafor replied with a small smile. She wants to speak to the Council without hegemony interference. Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council Station, Ambassador Diana Wells moved purposefully through corridors filled with frightened diplomats. News of the hegemony attacks had thrown the Council into chaos. Many representatives were already evacuating, fearing the station might be targeted next. Ambassador Toran hurried to her side. The emergency session is beginning. Many have fled, but most species have maintained at least one representative. And the hegemony delegation? Gone. High Counselor Draz recalled them to hegemony space the moment the attacks began. Wells nodded. Perfect. They entered the chamber, which was only half filled. The remaining representatives looked up as Wells approached the central platform. Without waiting for formal recognition, she activated the holographic display system. Distinguished representatives, she began. The hegemony has launched unprovoked attacks against sovereign worlds, whose only crime was forming peaceful relations with humanity. They have chosen war over coexistence. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Before you decide where your species will stand in this conflict, there is something you must see. Wells activated a data crystal. These are historical records recovered from the oldest hegemony database, accessed by our intelligence operatives during the Shadow War of the past months. The holographic display showed ancient hegemony ships approaching a primitive Earth, thousands of years in the past. The hegemony discovered Earth nearly 10,000 years ago, Wells explained as the images played. They observed humanity when we were still developing our first civilizations, and they made a decision. The display shifted to show hegemony operatives covertly interfering with human development, sabotaging early technologies, eliminating promising advancements, steering human progress away from space travel. They deliberately stunted our development, Wells continued as shocked gasps echoed through the chamber, not because we were dangerous or aggressive, but because their predictive model showed humanity had the potential to develop rapidly. We were a potential competitor, nothing more. She advanced the display to show internal hegemony communications. For thousands of years, they secretly manipulated our progress. When we finally approached space travel despite their interference, they decided on elimination rather than risk our expansion into the galaxy. The representatives, watched in stunned silence as the evidence mounted irrefutable proof of the hegemony's millennia-long deception. "They lied to you about us," Wells said quietly, "used us as the monster under the bed to justify their dominance. And now they wage war rather than accept a galaxy where they must share power." Ambassador Toran stood. "What do you propose, Ambassador Wells?" "An alliance. A new interstellar body built on genuine cooperation rather than domination. Human protection for any species that wishes to break free from hegemony control." As the Council representatives debated, Admiral Wolf's fleet arrived at the Vexari homeworld. The battle was already raging, hegemony warships bombarding the planet's defenses while the outnumbered Vexari fleet fought desperately to protect their people. "All ships, engage," Wolf ordered. "Priority targets are hegemony vessels targeting planetary defense systems." The human fleet tore into the hegemony formation with devastating precision. Ships that had been hidden for 5 centuries, technologies developed in isolation, tactics the hegemony had never encountered, all deployed in humanity's first major fleet action since their return. On his command screen, Wolf watched similar scenes playing out across allied systems as human forces arrived to support their new partners. The tide was turning. Meanwhile, Captain Ortiz had reached the hidden hegemony command center with a special operations team. While the galaxy's attention was focused on the battles, they had penetrated the heart of hegemony military operations. "Package is ready," Ortiz reported to Wolf through a secure quantum channel, awaiting final authorization. Wolf glanced at President Okafor, who had joined the operation via holographic projection. She nodded solemnly. "Authorization granted," Wolf said. "Execute Operation Lazarus." In the Hegemony Command Center, Ortiz activated a device reverse-engineered from Dr. Meta's original displacement technology. Unlike the version that had hidden Earth for centuries, this was precisely calibrated and temporary. A wave of energy spread outward, enveloping only the command center and its occupants, including the hegemony's supreme military leaders. Like Earth before them, they phased out of normal space, trapped in a pocket dimension. "Displacement successful," Ortiz confirmed. "Recall set for 50 subjective years, 30 seconds real time." For the hegemony leaders, what followed was 50 years of isolation, trapped together in a small facility with limited resources. 5 decades to contemplate their actions, their choices, their empire. For the rest of the galaxy, only half a minute passed. When the hegemony leadership reappeared, they were changed men. Many had aged dramatically, some had died in the interim. Those who remained were broken, having lived through the same exile they had forced upon humanity. The war ended as suddenly as it had begun. Without leadership, the hegemony forces faltered. Within days, a ceasefire was negotiated. 1 month later, representatives from 80 species gathered on Earth, now fully visible in its rightful place, to sign the charter of the new interstellar concordat. The Galactic Council was dissolved, replaced by a truly cooperative governing body with humanity as a founding member. At the ceremony, Dr. Lyra Meta, great-great-granddaughter of the physicist who had inadvertently saved humanity through displacement, addressed the assembled delegates. "My ancestors' desperate attempt to shield Earth created something unexpected. Time. Time for humanity to develop, to advance, to unify. We emerged from our exile stronger, wiser, more capable than we might have been otherwise." She looked across the faces of dozens of species, many experiencing their first visit to the legendary human homeworld. "We didn't disappear," she told them with a smile. "We were merely preparing for our return." As ships from across the galaxy orbited peacefully above, Earth had finally taken its rightful place among the stars, not through conquest, but through perseverance, intelligence, and the unwavering human spirit that had allowed them to survive against impossible odds. The Shadow Fleet that had once hidden behind the Galactic Council now protected the peace of a new galactic order, one built on cooperation rather than fear.